We're gonna start with this Paisley. And this shape, my friends, is just a raindrop. It's kind of like you're making a 6, but you go, oh, no, I'm gonna make like a little candle flicker or a raindrop or whatever. So you're gonna make that central raindrop, and then you're just gonna make a border around it. So you're gonna give it a little moat. And I'm trying to stay roughly the same distance away from it all the way around, but that can be challenging sometimes, so just do what you can. All right, so I've got that border. There we have it. And then we can start filling in the paisley, or we can add our other major elements and come back to the pattern making later. You can go in whatever order you choose. I'm going to add some leaves. So my leaves are going to be like I come out and then I come up to a point. So I'm going to do the same here. I'm going to go out and come up to a point. And then I'm also going to put that same type of a border inside this leaf. And I don't have to decide what goes in the center yet. I can decide that later. So then I'm going to leave some space, and I'm going to add the same thing that I just did. So I go out and I come up to a point, out and up to a point. And then we can add that little border on the inside, and we do the same shape. We follow the contours of the line that's around it. I like this piece to be very pointy. And then I'm going to add a third leaf. So you can see I'm skipping a little space because I'm planning later to put another leaf in. So we're going to go out and up, out and up, and then we can do the little inside border that follows those exact same contours. So we have the basis of our paisley done. I hope that everybody's feeling good. If you want to draw other leaf shapes, you don't have to do exactly what I'm doing, but I'm just gonna, this is what I'm showing you. All right, so now I'm gonna turn sideways. I'm gonna work on this large flower here. All I'm doing is kind of a big arc, and I'm gonna put 2 tiny arcs inside it. And what we're doing here is creating a lot of little places where we can later go in and add a pattern. So then I'll work on the petals of my flower. So I want to start with one where I can see the whole petal. And I like to twirl my paper around. Makes my hand happier. All right, so I'm just trying to roughly make these the same size. If they're not exactly the same size, I am not worried about it. So I'm going to add another one over here. I don't always stay exactly in my pencil lines, but that's just how I work. All right, so like we did before, we're going to come and put a little border on the outside of the shape that we have just drawn. So I'm just following the shape that I've already put down there. And I am turning my paper to make it easiest for my hand to do this work. All right, so now we have our middle paisley, 3 leaves, and a flower. Oh, what's next? Let's do this flower on the other side. So you can see that I'm sort of doing the same thing, but in a little bit of a different shape. So we'll do the middle part. So there's our larger circle. And then we'll do 2 smaller arcs on the inside. So now we have the base for that flower down. And these flowers are going to just go off the page. We don't have enough room for this giant flower, so they're just going to go off the page. We don't get to see the whole thing. It's not a problem. We can fill in all this space with all the design we want. You know, no one ever chooses to do yard work until you're making a video in your house. And then somebody says it's time to add some extra sound to Kasey's video. So I'm just adding these petals just like I did on that other flower. And we're going to pretend there's a petal here later when we color it. So here is this extra petal. And you know what? I'll just draw it here because that I think I drew first in pencil, but it doesn't matter. Okay. So like before, we're going to add that simple border that follows the contours of the shape that we just drew. So I'm just going to go up and over, and then do we think I need another petal here? Maybe I do. All right. So I'm going to I'll just add another little petal. We'll pretend. We'll work that out later. All right, so we have a paisley, 2 flowers, and some leaves. I'm going to add these bottom leaves here. And because they will be behind those other leaves, we don't have to start them at the bottom. We can start here. And we can do that same shape. So we just curve out, back in, and we make a little point. And then I'm going to do the border inside. It doesn't matter if you do the inside shape first or the outside shape first, whatever is working for you. And then we can do one over here because I've got some space here. So I'm going to do the outside pointy line, this outside pointy line, and then I'm going to add that contour on the inside. Perfect. All right, so now we have, I'll turn it sideways so you can see. So now we've got a couple of flowers, some large leaves and small leaves. I got room for another flower over here, so let's do it. I'm going to start with my large middle because that is the simplest way for me to do it. And then add my 2 arcs here. Next, just like before, we will add our petals. And I like to start with a petal that I can see the whole petal. Like this one goes off the page, but I can see these petals. And then this one's going to go behind a leaf that we already drew, as is this one. It's going behind that flower. Now we can go in, you know what's next. We're just going to add this contour on the outside. So let's do that, and then we'll come up and around and down. Oh, settle down, puppy. A heavy breather back there. All right. I think she's hot. She's been running around outside in the sunshine. And then I've got room down at the bottom for one more flower. So I'm going to go ahead and add that. So again, I'm starting with my large center, and then I'm going to add my 2 smaller circles. Here it's a circle because we can see a lot of that flower. Then we'll add our petals that we can see the whole petal. And then our ones that we can't, we just add those for fun. And then our contour. We are pros at the contour by now because we've done quite a few shapes. All right, so that's all it's the paisley, the flowers, and the leaves. What I've done over here is show you how to add another element. So let's add a swirl. And I'm going to start, just pick a place and start. So I'm going to start right here and go up and just make a swirl. So that's one easy swirl. Then I'm going to come off of that swirl and close it in. I'm going to come off of that swirl. You can do these any way you want. It's just a lot of swirls that go around one another. Swirl, swirl, swirl. Alrighty, and let's see, we'll do another one. And what I'll do when I go to put pattern in this is I'll put a different pattern in each little section of the swirl. And I want to make it look like it's coming from behind that flower. So we'll just go up and around and over to here. Sometimes it's easier to just go to the finishing point and come to the line that you've already made. And then this would go behind that flower and connect back here. So we can make sense of this later. You can do any sort of little pattern in there. And then to kind of finish this out, I'm going to go on top of this flower and I'll just make, this is just a circle with circles inside of it. So it's just a lot of arcs, almost like you're making a rainbow back there. And you just finish it out however you see fit with the space that is there. Now that we have a basis, so we've got the main parts ready, we are ready to add pattern. The main middle paisley is the part where you want kind of to get started. You can branch out from there. In my main paisley part, I'm going to start with some circles, and it's not the full circle. It's these concentric shapes that go around and around. And like I said, later we can go in and we can put a different pattern in each one of them. I'm also going to make some flower petals, but I'm going to go ahead and set a size for those flower petals by adding a little border right here. So I've added my border, and now when I make these flower petals, I know exactly how high to go. And these are an arch, kind of like a sunflower petal. And I want them all to sort of have the same amount of arch to them. If I can, I'm aiming for that. It doesn't always happen, and I think it's still pretty nice in the end. And we just want to add them wherever we can see. So that is the inside of that one. And then I'm just going to do some scales here. So this is just some simple fish scale type pattern. So you make a row of scallops, and then you make another row of scallops that meets in the center of each of the previous scallops, and that gives you that fish scale pattern. All right. So I'm planning my pattern, and this paisley isn't a perfect shape, so my scales aren't going to be super precise. Maybe they might not be perfect, but I am cool with that. You just make it make sense when you look at it. There we go. When we get up to the part that's too little, we're done. Now we can think about what pattern do we want to put in these leaves. I decided in these leaves they would all have just a smash, slice it in half, and then we'll do lines radiating out from the center. This is where paisleys start being so much fun for me, because you can go really any direction with the pattern that you add, and there's no limit to how small or intricate your patterning can be. Let's see, do I want to do that pattern on both sides? I do. I'm going to do it. Okay. So I want these to sort of be the same amount apart as the previous ones. Let's see how good I can be at that. So I'm just drawing little lines. All right, see how much fun it's getting? I'll do the same thing in this one. So I'm going to come up to that point, and then I'll draw lines here, and then we'll draw lines also on the other side. All right, and now for the other side, let's see what's the best way for my hand here. All right, 1, 2, 3. I like to count my lines sometimes. It's just very relaxing. Sometimes people have, your hands are shaky for different reasons. That's okay. Just keep drawing. Your art is for you. It doesn't have to be to impress anyone else. Just let it be a creative practice. I am not claiming to be the world's most amazing Paisley drawer. I am simply claiming to enjoy it. I'm enjoying it a lot right now. It's kind of fun. So I'm just making lots of tiny pattern. And I will definitely time lapse this at some point. I know that this is going to be a lot of pattern, and I tend to draw that very slowly. All right, now in this leaf here, I want to make like some little donuts. So I have a circle with a circle inside, and then I'm going to get a little bit bigger as the leaf gets a little bit bigger. When you're thinking of pattern, I like to think of circles, dots, dashes. Think of things that you see in nature that are patterned, leaves, feathers, all of that good stuff. And then I'm going to have a line connecting those friends. All right, so there's a kind, and then in this leaf, I'm going to make, it's almost another little concentric shape to the rest of this. And then I'll put some arches on the outside of it. All right, I already did that one. Okay, so we can just come here and we can hit the top of that shape that's already there. It's nice to have that line because you know exactly how tall to make stuff. So I'm just adding these, and at the top, I'm going to try to make this one, there we go, I'm trying to make it right in the middle. And then I'm going to keep rotating, and I will do the same thing over here. So I'm doing lots of little arches. Lots and lots of arches. All right, so that's that one. And like I said, you don't ever have to be done with pattern. You can absolutely keep going and going and going. What I'm going to do here in the middle of my flowers is make this a radiating stripy sort of situation. So I'll do this. You don't have to do it the same. If you have several flowers, you can do them all the same, or you can do them all different. It's your art, and I think either way is going to give you a successful outcome. Sometimes I don't want to think very much, so I just do it the same. So what I've done, the little section in the middle is not where I'm putting the stripes. I'm putting it in that larger section. So it's going to be here, and it's kind of like the rays of the sun. They keep changing the angle every time I draw a line. this is where when I'm doing something that's patterny, I enjoy kind of making up a little rule. It's like, all right, every time I have a flower, I am putting radiating stripes inside the big loop. So I don't have to think very hard. The next thing I do is just look for another flower that has that large part. Later, if I want to, I could go in and color every other in dark or put dots in every other one. The thing about patterns is you can get very, very intricate depending on how much time, patience, and creative space you want or need. It can be very, very time consuming, which is for me very enjoyable. But sometimes you only have a small window when you can create. So do what you need to do in that creative window just to get yourself into that flow state, thinking about what you're drawing, making all these little tiny creative decisions. All right, I think that's all the flowers, right? Yes. So now I get to decide, okay, what am I going to do in the next thing that I decorate? What do I want to do next? Okay, let's go. I'm going to put dots in this part of the flower. So it's just little circles. Should I have them touching or not? I'm going to have them not quite touching. They're very close to one another, but they are not touching. Those are not very close to one another. All right. Whatever it ends up being. Okay, now that's my rule. So that's the thing I'm going to do in the rest of these small spaces. I'll just fit some dots in there. And my friends, this is the process of a Paisley. You just keep filling in all of your spaces with new pattern. So I'm finding all my flowers, doing the same thing. There are a couple of different ways that you can do the flower petals. Some people put a pattern inside the flower petals, and some people just kind of add the little lines that make the flower petals look poofy. Okay, what do we have? We have this one needs some circles. And I like to go fill in on the sides there for the places that we can't see that are behind that middle one, but I still want to add a little detail. Okay, so they're not all precisely exactly the same, but they're very similar, so I'm happy with that. Let's give this a, what can we do now? All right. Now let's go inside this Paisley, and I think what I'm going to do is make little stripes, but they're curvy. So I'm just going from point A to point B, making these stripes kind of curvy. Hopefully that will delineate this Paisley from the areas around it. And sometimes when I'm doing this, I think about things like, okay, I have a stripy pattern here. Let's do a dotted pattern or a curvy pattern here, and that will set them apart. So that's sort of what I'm doing here. And because this is curvy, my pattern is maybe changing a tiny bit as I go around, but as long as I keep it in the same idea, it will create a pattern going around this Paisley. I like sketching in that initial pencil area so that I've got a foundation, I have a pattern, I have an idea. Some people like to just go straight in with the marker. And because this is such a free form sort of thing, I think that's fine. Whatever you're the most comfortable with and whatever you have on hand. Sometimes you don't have a pencil or you don't have a little marker. You could use a felt tip pen. I work for these tutorials, I work on a half sheet of paper, but any size paper is fine. It doesn't have to be exactly what I'm working with. Okay, so I've got that pattern around there. And you know, I think that I want a dot at the end of this paisley. I just do. So I'm adding it because I can. It'd be kind of fun to put dots all around. But if I do that, I'll do it later. I am just trying to get you in the basic paisley pattern making right now. Okay, let's come in this shape. I'm gonna split it directly in half. Let's make that line thicker. Let's make this line thicker. I can do that. Ha 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 ha. Okay. I'm gonna make this line a little thicker. You can do this or you can do something different. And let's see, I'll do some arches. And then I'll just color in the background part. So you can have some darker parts and some lighter parts. And that contrast is kind of nice at the end. Every single part doesn't have to have a pattern in it, or it can. Whatever you've got time for, whatever you feel like doing. And when I say whatever you have time for, sometimes that means whatever you've got the energy for. Whatever you have the space, the concentration, and the energy to do. All right, so you can see how coloring it in makes it a little different. And then I think, let's go. I'm gonna put some radiating lines between the petals of these flowers too. That's kind of fun. Then we can do some things in those sections if we want to. What can we do here? You know what we can do here is, I'm gonna do little triangles because that sort of mimics the edge of those flowers. And I enjoy that we've got triangles and scallops, and then the leaf of those flowers is kind of a triangular scallop. All right, let's see, what pattern can we put in these flowers? Let's do, I think on here I'm going to do dots. So I'll do some dots going around the center. And then inside of this, I think I'm actually just going to do like a lot of little dots. So they're not particularly a pattern. It's just a space filled with a bunch of dots. So that's another example of something you can do in any of these spaces. Let's pay attention to this swirl just a little bit. I'm going to put a dot at the end of this swirl, kind of a teardrop shaped dot, and then I am also going to put one here. Then they're friends. We know they're friends. It's a good time. So you can do a different pattern in each of these. So where does this one end? This ends here. I'm going to do that sort of ropey pattern that we did around the center paisley. And this is one of those situations, again, where it helps me to turn the paper. My goal here is that each of these lines is a little bit curved. I don't want these lines to be straight. So these are just a little bit curvy. And I'm going to keep turning my paper because that's the way I like to do it. If you want to challenge yourself by trying to draw these from a lot of different angles with your hand, that can be fun. But that is not the kind of fun I'm looking for today. I am looking for cute little Paisley fun. I have a niece named Paisley. She's cute and fun. I really just get into my joyful creative practice when I get to make all these fun little lines. I like to take my time. You may be going more quickly than me. That's fine. I'm not worried about it. I am not here to impress you with my art speed, because if I was, I don't think that would happen. I'm not really a speed artist. I might win some sort of prize for taking the longest, but it's not a contest. The space that you make for yourself, the physical space, the mental space, the, what do we call that? The time space, the time you carve out for yourself is for you. And whatever your art is like at the end, that's what it's like. What's important is that you find a way to enjoy this process that you're engaging in. Every time you make a new decision in your creative endeavor, your brain is becoming a little more resilient. And that will help you the next time you try to do something creative. I don't know what I'm going to do in there. I'll come back to it. But this is the basic way to get your Paisley started. And you can come out of here and you can make like cute little curly lines with the little raindroppy piece at the end. Let's come down and make another one. You can add all sorts of fun little business like this. So you can add some little swirlies like that anywhere you want. You can also do things like, ooh, let's do this. This will be fun. You can make a lot of little lines that come out of a shape. And then you can make a pattern on those lines. Like we could put a little ball on top of each of these lines. So we can do that, and then we can come back and put a little ball on top of each of those. And you could do this to every flower, or you only have to do it to one. That's looking really cute. So the more little whimsical additions you give your Paisley, the more fabulous it's gonna look. And you don't have to finish it all in one sitting. If you're thinking to yourself, ugh, you know, that's lovely, but I don't have that kind of time today, just get your basics in there and, you know, work on it for 10 or 15 minutes a day when you need a break or when you have a break. That's all you have to do. So there's a cute little, that's a cute way to do it, kind of that little pin head, like a push pin, not a push pin, a pin that you use when you sew. I don't sew, so I don't know what they're called, but those kind of little pins. And like I can do it, you know what, I think I'm gonna do it to the outside flowers. That makes sense to me. And it doesn't matter if I overlap because I'm using all the same color. So it's just gonna write over the lines that are already there. And Absolutely fine. All right. So we can't see all of my little dots because that one goes off the paper. Come back and get started at the bottom here. And this will overlap, but that's all right. Perfect. So now we have a couple with the cute little dots, and we can put the dots only on the flowers, or, you know, we've got this circle over here that is the only one, so we can also put some dots here. But I am going to space these out a little bit further, and there would be some back here because it goes behind that flower. And we can put a circle that is open on top here of each of these. And then, let's see, would we see this one? Yeah, we would see another one coming from over there. And then I'm going to connect these with some little arches. So that gives us an interesting texture at the outside here. And we could go in and we could put pattern inside there. Whatever we want to do. That might be fun to also do a little arch between each of these. I like it. All right, so that's another way to add some pattern to the edge. So this is what it's looking like so far. I have a lot going on. I definitely want to put something outside here. I think that's too plain looking. What can I do, my friends? All right. So we've got circles, we've got swooshies. Let's do, you know what? We're just gonna do straight up circles on the outside of this one. Just some circles and color them in. Nothing fancy, but it's gonna give this that little extra bit of flair. Add some shape to it. Give it a little fringe, like a lampshade or the bottom of a dress. So circles. And you can see my circles aren't exactly the same size. That's okay. Anyone comes back after looking at my art and feels the need to tell me that my circles aren't the same size, you know what my response is going to be, don't you? This art is not for that person. This art is for me. I am enjoying drawing circles. I'm sort of, you know, thinking I'm going to make them the same size, but if I don't, nobody's business but mine. All right, so I need to come put some back on this edge because that is in front of the thing behind it. So I'm going to run over some of the things that I already drew. That's all right. We can, if I go back and put color in here, it'll make a little more sense once I add that color. But that's just one of those creative decisions that I'll need to make. I can cross that bridge when I get there. I don't have to make that decision now. All right. So I added some little dots to that. There are all kinds of shapes, all kinds of lines you can add. So what I want you to do is kind of finish this out on your own. I like this because this is all wavy. I think I probably will do some stripies in its border. And since I've gotten you started, I'm probably not going to finish this whole entire thing in the tutorial, because what I'll do is go back when I have more time, or I feel like, hey, I've made my own adult coloring book page. So I'm going to go color it in. But you can use each of these spaces as you wish to add more pattern. And if you get to a place where, like here, we have pattern meeting pattern, you can always just make this line a little more bold. Just kind of go over it a couple of times. And that will show a bit of separation. Ooh, you know, it might be fun. It's a little raindroppy thing coming off the end of here. Woo! That is fun. I was totally right. Okay. So you can do things like that. This is what I've got so far. I'm going to leave you to your own creativity to finish out whatever it is you're doing. And I hope that you have had a good time today.